Hey everybody, it's Jesse down in the corner here. A lot of you this week asked me to react to this 9.2 cinematic that plays after you defeat Anduin in the new raid. And of course, I will oblige. I've not watched this yet, mostly because my investment in this expansion is minimal. 10.0, we'll see what happens. But this whole Shadowlands thing is, I'm over it. However, I do kind of want to see what this is about. I haven't watched it yet. And so, first, let's jump in, and then we'll do some reaction afterwards. Cool? All right. And play.
Do you not understand? This one is bound to me. Fulfill your final purpose. Annihilation. The fate of all who carry my blade. My son. This blade does not belong to darkness. It was forged by valor. And also by honor. Its legacy and ours are with you, even here. Now, let it be finished.
Arthas.
Is this all that remains of him?
The last flicker of his scarred spirit, consumed in the forges of the jailer.
No crown, no throne, not even a soul left for judgment. I hated you, hunted you, and with each selfish act became you. That is my burden to bear. But your legacy is at an end. Be gone then, Arthas Menethil. May the last whisper of your name fade and be forgotten.
Okay. So, I've lots of thoughts on this. First off, shout out as always to the Blizzard cinematic team. They're great. They always have been. No qualms there. Let's go back to the beginning, shall we? So right off the bat, this takes place immediately, I imagine, as you're like fighting Anduin, and then it looks like you've won, and then like they do in Blizzard games, especially in WoW all the time, it's like, the bad guy's about to do a thing, cut to cinematic. And so I would imagine that as you're about to hit 0% HP, he's like, I'm not dead yet, and scene. So that is what this is. Blasts Jaina and shatters this force field. And then, I'm going to lower the volume on this bad boy. And then the jailer, Zoval, is like, don't you get it? This meat puppet of mine, I am invincible, and he's going to do my bidding. Also, real quick, side tangent on Zoval, because I need to just say this. I have often found myself saying in videos or asking friends who are still playing the game, what are his motivations? Why is Zoval doing what Zoval is doing? And a lot of the time, I'll get pushback that's like, dude, we know why. Like, he says over and over and over again, he wants to unmake life and death, and he wants to dominate. And yes, I'm aware there are 2 more bosses and 2 more cinematics coming in this expansion that will fill in some information. I expect that. However, we are, I think I can safely say, 99% through this expansion, and I still just don't know the why. I feel like as a villain, there's not enough why there. The plan, I get it. I get the plan. I don't get why the plan. I don't understand any of it. And again, I might be just so far out of the loop that I just am not getting it. But it seems crazy to me that we're still at this point that I can't honestly tell you what the objective of this villain is. I mean, again, I get unmaking life and death, but like, what will that do? Why would you do that? What is the purpose of this? What does any of this have to do with the people who created life and death? We have time, I understand, and hopefully we'll get those answers, but like, it's crazy to me that we're at the end and I still don't know. Okay, let's jump back in.
This one is bound to me.
Anduin!
All right, real quick. Sylvanas running towards him shouting Anduin, I think is just an indication that for much of this expansion, and maybe possibly the reason why I'm not a big fan of this expansion, is that it's very Sylvanas forward. That the story is revolving around her as a character and her growth as a character. And as a person who started as Horde way back in vanilla, Sylvanas has always been one of those characters that in like little helpings and sprinklings of Sylvanas is awesome, but you know, I've always viewed her as a bad guy. When the devs back at the beginning of Shadowlands were like, oh no, Sylvanas is a bad person, totally agree. I remember when her being a part of the Horde was about convenience, not because we trusted Sylvanas. And so she has always been evil to me. And so the story of like her redemption is like whatever to me. I've never been excited about that, and I do not care about it. And I honestly feel like, sadly, the reason why we get a lot of Sylvanas stuff is because in the past, there haven't been a lot of great female characters in WoW. And so the most complicated ones are ones that kind of suck. So Sylvanas, it's personal. I'm going to get a message from my dear friend Michelle Mora, who's like, Sylvanas does not suck, Jesse. All I'm saying is, to me, Sylvanas was never that great. And they only had so many, Jaina, Tyrande, Sylvanas, there's only so many female characters that they have to work with. And so as they try to make them more part of the story, it, I think, takes away some of the cool parts of them. And so this is just her running forward shouting Anduin is just another one of those. She's the main driving force of the scene besides him. Anyway, side tangent. Let's continue.
Fulfill your final purpose. Annihilation. The fate of all who carry my blade.
Yo, this next bit, fire. This is the kind of stuff that WoW should be doing more of. Just, like, I don't even know how best to describe this kind of moment. But this is fan service to the highest degree, and they need to do more of it, and I don't know why they don't, because this is exactly what I wanted out of this expansion. Like, going in, I wanted moments with Saurfang. I wanted to see, like, Anduin is actually a character I like a lot. And the relationship with his father, I think, is one that should have been built up more and more and more and more, especially now that we have access to the afterlife kind of thing. And then they just took Anduin out of it. They were like, he's the villain. I don't know. This is what I've wanted. So seeing this, love it. Love this bit.
My son.
This is so good.
This blade does
Anduin's
not
theme
belong
coming through.
to
It's
darkness. It was forged by valor.
Again, I've said this before in the past. I'll say it again. There's a audio file on YouTube. Look it up. Enjoy. It is like 18 versions of Anduin's theme. And I think over the course of all of WoW recently, we've heard like, I don't know, 4 or 5 of them. Anduin seems like such a major part of this story, and they keep taking him out of the game. I don't get it. I never will get it. But hearing the theme, seeing this is awesome. This is very well done.
Also, my honor.
That's so good.
Legacy and ours are with you, even here. Now, let it be finished.
I'm gonna pause on this bright white screen. Actually, that's terrible. I wouldn't want to stare at that. There we go. We'll go right here. What I think is interesting about this, and it hit me watching it, just a few short moments ago. This perfectly demonstrates the difference between WoW and what I'm currently playing Final Fantasy XIV. This scene, in fact, everything so far, if I go all the way back to the beginning, there's Arthas, oh my god. Well, actually, technically Arthas. Anduin. There's Anduin. And then we have, you can't see my cursor, but there's Jaina and Uther and Sylvanas. Major characters in the world of Warcraft, major characters in Warcraft history, all that stuff. Where's the player character? Where are you in this scene? It's one of those things that the more I play Final Fantasy XIV, the more I see the fault in WoW storytelling as the world continues to expand, as the stakes raise, as everything about it gets bigger and bigger and the story gets crazier. You still are just like the champion, the horde guy, or the alliance guy. And in the beginning, you were just kind of a soldier in the fight. And as time went on, you became more and more and more important, but not nearly as important as the NPC characters who inhabit the world, who are the leaders, right? And so you're like left out of scenes like this. And there are moments like this where, and I'll try to find the bit where the hands are like, yeah, this. There are moments like this where in WoW, they're still very cool. But I know for a fact that in Final Fantasy XIV, a moment like this, Anduin would be you, the player. And two characters, in fact, this is, may or may not be very similar to some things in Final Fantasy XIV. This is, I know for a fact, you, the player, would be the Anduin character going through some shit, and then people in your life who have died will come to your aid like, bro, you're not alone, we got you. And that's so much more powerful than this moment. This moment is brilliant. I love this. I think this is very, very good. I think this is like some of my favorite WoW storytelling in this moment right now. But I know that because it is not me, it will never, like, Final Fantasy XIV, that shit has made me cry, man. WoW has never once done that. And again, it's because moments like this, while amazing, I have no emotional investment, no stake in what's happening because, like, while it is very cool, I'm not gonna, like, this isn't me overcoming it. This is Anduin overcoming it, which again begs the question, did Anduin even need us for this moment? Were we the player needed for this to happen? Sure, we got to there. Sure, we defeated him, I guess, and weakened him in the raid. But this moment where his two mentors, his father and then his more recent father-like figure, both guiding him to be the man he is, did he need us for this? Because we didn't do any of this. That's not our hand. I don't know. It is both very cool for WoW, but also having played other games now, I realize that, like, this is also what WoW is lacking. Anyway, let us continue. Again, this is so cool.
Let it be finished.
Also on a, I don't want to say philosophical level. What word am I thinking of? This is essentially Anduin growing as a young man. It is him finding his inner strength to defeat the evil inside of him. There's a lot of contextual things going on here that I think are very, very good. But again, if this was, say, Final Fantasy XIV, this would be you doing those things, which I think is more impactful. All right. Still very cool, though. And I like how Jaina goes up to him and is like, yo, you okay, bro? But what we see, which I think is interesting here, is the last remnant of Arthas. And I know this is probably a very topical thing in the WoW community, but I'm going to let you know. Me personally, this whole Arthas being like a little bit of like spirit goo at the end doesn't matter to me. In my mind, Arthas died at the end of Warcraft 3. I know that shit has been retconned, and Arthas was Arthas and all that. Nah, Ner'zhul killed Arthas at the end of Warcraft 3, and they became one being, the Lich King. It was later retconned where Arthas killed Ner'zhul at a banquet in their mind, which again, I'm still very pissed about. I think that's super dumb. But yeah, to me, Arthas has been dead for a long time. This whole Lich King, the Lich King was a different being. The Lich King was the combination of souls. It was this warped, twisted creature. So, you know, the whole idea of what Arthas is, this is fine. This is fine with me. It doesn't matter because my Arthas it has been gone forever. So this, like, Ner'zhul, they did Ner'zhul wrong too. Don't even get, all right, let's just continue.
All that remains of him.
The last flicker of his scarred spirit, consumed at the forges of the jailer.
I also have to wonder if Arthas is a character, if they had gone with what originally the story was, where Arthas and Ner'zhul fused into one being and became the Lich King, if it wouldn't have been more fun to have, you know, down the line, if there was, in my fictional universe, if there was a version of Shadowlands where we finally got to see Arthas again as Arthas from before he was the Lich King. That, I think, would have been a fun story, is you get to hang out with Arthas again as a character, as Arthas Menethil, rather than the Lich King. And you get to see, like, boy, I mean, this whole thing that's about to happen with Sylvanas, where Sylvanas is regretful for her choices and what she... Having that as a storyline for Arthas in Shadowlands that you got to experience with him the entire way through, where he and Uther, Angel Uther, got to have, like, a moment, I think I would have loved that. I would have, and then having Sylvanas come to terms while dealing with an Arthas who was sort of a spirit, who was also coming to terms with, like, how badly he screwed up, and the idea that, like, the Lich King being was... I just, there's so many good ideas there. That's all I'm saying. All right. I'm just gonna keep rambling if I, continuing on.
No crown, no throne, not even a soul left for judgment. I hated you, hunted you, and with each selfish act became you.
Imagine if this was a conversation between Sylvanas and Arthas, like an actual talk where they realized they had both been used by Zovaal, right? And the Arthas that we knew as the Lich King, it was just the Lich King, right? Just like Anduin was just a meat puppet for so. Obviously, the past is in the past, but if anyone can retcon stories, it's Blizzard. Let me tell you. Anyway, continuing on.
That is my burden to bear. But your legacy is at an end.
Also, what's interesting about this is they frame this scene around, at least at this moment, around Arthas and the Blade and all these different Arthas thematic things. But for most of the story of Warcraft, we've diverged from ever caring about Arthas again. Sure, Sylvanas is obsessed, but that's what makes her character fun, right? Her obsession with that, her villainous side, is what made it fun. I wonder, again, alternate reality, Jesse, is if the story had featured more Arthas. Like, if Arthas wasn't beaten all the way back in Wrath of the Lich King, if he was stopped, and then we could still have more Arthas, just like with the old gods, we stop them, and then, like, oh, they're back again. Like, man, it's just like in movies, especially in superhero movies where there's a villain and it's a good villain and then they kill that villain and you're like, there were so many other stories you could have told. Why did you do that? And it's always because of studio reasons and the idea of just like, well, we don't know if we're going to make another one, that kind of stuff. But I love the idea of the villain being like, oh, don't worry, I'll come back. And that being a threat constantly. It's, again, this is all Jesse Fantasy World, and we have what we have. But a moment like this, I can imagine after, again, there's a reason why Final Fantasy XIV can nail a 10-year story arc. And this moment in WoW, I can imagine if they would have kept this going, if this was a 15-year story arc that ended with Arthas being like a little tiny orb of spirit, and it was like, this is it. This is all that remained of him. All this pain and suffering and all this Arthas bullshit we've dealt with. And in the end, all that remained was like a shade of who he was, this little flicker, and everyone pities him for what he has become. Like that's like an emotional thing that I think a lot of players of the game would have responded to. I don't know.
Be gone then, Arthas Menethil. May the last whisper of your name fade.
Imagine if this was a 15-year Arthas arc and this is the last thing they said to him. I would love that, especially if it was Sylvanas acknowledging that her crusade against him was like, in the end, just as dumb as his crusade against the world. Like that, there's so much potential for power there. And I know a lot of people, I see the internet, I'm not dumb, we're upset about Sylvanas having so much to say here. I think as a character, this is fine. This moment is fine. She clearly is the main driving force of what's going on in this expansion. It appears that Uther and Jaina are both very sad, so, they both go like, oh. I know that in the game, from what I remember playing, they also have conversations about Arthas, so I don't think they're missing anything out of this. I do think it's strange not to utilize all of them in this moment, but again, Blizzard always does that, where they pick one or two people and make them like the focus, and everyone else just exists to be there, so we don't complain about people not being there. But this is fine. I'm not too frustrated about this. I think my biggest thing is there's so much cool here that feels like isn't capitalized on because of past choices with the game. That's all. That's where my head's at. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Again, my investment in all this is pretty low. I can't wait to see where we end up. I'm more excited for whatever the hell the next two cinematics are going to be. I hope that they are like, and something crazy happens that takes me back into wanting to know what happens in 10.0 and beyond. I guess we'll all find out together. That's it for me. Thank you, everybody. And I'll see you next time you ask me to react to something like this.